Okay? So look at the next slide. This is what I call the realm of God. Now, in the realm of God, everything you see on the screen that's white goes infinite in all directions. Okay? So I can't actually show a slide that goes infinite in all directions, so you have to kind of use imagination. Everything you see there is white, goes infinite in all directions. And this is the world God dwells before He created the world. Before He created time, and before He created creation, and space and matter, this is where God dwells. Okay? So just kind of whip me in that mode. So only God dwells here. Okay? So when we talk about only God existing, think of no time, no space, no creation, nothing. That's what this white represents. So what we'll see here is that where God dwells and whoever God is, they're one and the same, because only God is there. When we say God dwelling in a place, it's not even a place. So, but our language can only describe it this way. Okay? And if you look confused, just stay confused. You'll get it in a moment. All right. So let's look at this. So let's look at God's nature. This place of this infinite area. Look at God's nature. So what are some characteristics of God's nature? Well, this area in God is timeless. There is no time here. Okay? There's no past, there's no present, and there's no future. It's absolutely timeless. You can't get old, you can't die. You can't be created, there's no beginning, no end. This area is timeless. And guess what? God is timeless too. Right? Another aspect of God's nature in this realm of God is that there's no beginning of end. He's eternal, right? So we talk about God being eternal, no beginning, no end. That's what God is. There is no change. God is absolute. If there's no time, there's no change. Does that make sense? There's no time. You can't change from one thing to another because that implies time. So therefore, when we talk about God being timeless, not only does He have no beginning, no end, He also doesn't change. Okay? Has everyone seen the logical conclusions I'm coming to when we start saying these things? We have to think about the logical conclusions of what we believe. And this is what I'm kind of helping out here. Right? Well, if only God exists here, then God is one of a kind. There's nothing else outside of Him. So He's holy. That's what it means here. Okay? God is one of a kind. He's holy. So nothing else exists here but God. God is immaterial. He's spirit. Right? So, remember, this is before God created anything. So there's no material. There's no space. There's no time here. So God must be a non-material being. Right? So this is we're talking about God's nature in this realm. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask. Because sometimes, it'll be a little overwhelming at first. And then we talk about God is without measure. He's infinite. Well, if this is infinite in all directions, and God is the only person that's there filling up this whole area, which is not really an area per se, then God must also be infinite. Is everyone following me here? You guys making sense? Is this making sense? God is timeless. He's immaterial. He's without measure. He's one of a kind. Right? Because only God exists there. So this is describing what God is outside of time and space. Now let's look at another aspect of God's character. How does God's character relate to this area here? And now, I'm going to show you here in a minute how this relates to apologetics in a second. Okay? So God's character. Well, God's character, He's the moral standard of righteousness. It's His very character and being of who He is that determines what is justice, what is righteousness. Right? So so morality was not something that God created. Was God always just? Yes. Was there ever a time that God was not just? No. So therefore, justice, or the concept of justice and righteousness, must exist outside of time with Him, because that's part of who God is. You guys seeing that? See how it works? Let's look at another aspect of God's character. When we talk about love, justice, His goodness, those things are eternal in nature because they're part of God's eternal nature. Right? You can't separate God, love, from God, because that's who the right thing God is. So therefore, love must also be eternal. Okay? Let's look at another aspect. The mind of God. Did God think before He created? Do you think He thought before He created? Yeah. So that means God's thinking must also be eternal and have no beginning or end. It wasn't a time where God didn't think and then he starts thinking, because that would imply what? That he changes. Right? So the mind of God is existing outside of creation, time. So it means truth. Truth is something that is not created. It's something eternal. Right? What about logic and mathematics? Is mathematics and logic created by God? No, it can't be.
Why?
Because that's how God thinks. If God thinks logically, and we say that he was thinking before he created, that means it has no beginning and end. Logic is how God thinks. Mathematics is just a form of putting logic down on paper.
So within the mathematics is actually something created by God. It's just logic for the way he thinks.
No, mathematics is not something. Mathematics is just a different form of logic.
But like the number 4, that's created by God.
No, the concept of 4 is not created.
I said the number.
Well, the number. If you're talking about mathematics as a representation of the number 4, then yes.
Okay. So there's got to be a very distinct difference between what you're saying.
I'm talking about the concept of mathematics. The concept of logic itself has not been created. Now, the number 4 as we have it today, yes, but that's not mathematics. That's just a representation of the number 4. Like in China, I might have a different symbol for the number 4. That symbol was created, but that symbol represents something that's immaterial, right?
You're just saying that this is who he is, God's character.
God's character, right? God's character is truth. God's character is logical, right? God has a mind.
So then can we say that God did not create love?
That's correct.
Because that's who he is?
That is correct. You're right. God did not create love. Love is something that's not created because it's part of his eternal character.
But what about us on earth and how we respond to other people in love?
Right. We're living out God's aspects that he's revealed to us. But the concept of love, what love is an eternal aspect of God himself. So it's never been created. Because God is love. Right?
Right.
So that love is not something that God created. He didn't say one day, this idea of love is a good idea. I think I'm going to create love today. No, because it's who he is.
So when he said, let us make man in our image.
Right. His image has already existed.
Right.
God didn't create his own image. Right? We're a reflection of who he is.
He put that in.
Yes. He put something that's eternal in us, his image. Does that make sense? So his image must already exist in order for him to put it into us.
So how do you apply that to logic and mathematics?
Right.
Because how do I apply what to logic and
The
mathematics?
idea of God putting that in us.
Well, we know logic and mathematics. We know that 1 + 1 = 2 because of what? God revealed it to us. Right? All knowledge is what? Revealed to us by God. Right? We won't know anything unless God revealed it to us. How we receive knowledge is not something we get on our own. God must reveal it to us. This is what we talk about the 2 revelations. General and special revelation from God. Okay? So what we need to keep in mind, we need to keep in our back of our mind, is we're going to go through this 100 times. All knowledge comes from God. All knowledge comes from God.
So mathematics knowledge comes from God.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right? There's not a bit of knowledge out there that does not come from God. God is a source of all truth. Because why? God is truth. You see that? So everything has a source from God.
He's leaving.
I was leaving. Okay.
So I'm saying mathematics, knowledge is from God.
All knowledge is from God. So this goes from take it from let's say you're talking to an atheist. Well, he's saying he has knowledge on himself, and you believe all knowledge comes from God. So if you're correct, where's he getting his knowledge from? He's getting it from God. So it's your job to show him that his knowledge is coming from God. You see how this works? You see how I'm not trying to some abstract argument. He already knows that God exists. According to Romans 1, he already knows that God exists, but he suppresses the truth of the righteousness. So you're going to show him that he knows that God exists already.
So
You don't have to prove it.
So can you give an example of that?
Yes, next class. Okay? I don't want to go too far down because I want to get down to the basics to make sure we understand this part of it.
But you're going to break all this down.
I'm going to break this down. We're just laying the foundation. Remember, we're doing the foundation first, then we're going to build the wall second, and then we're going to build the roof third. Okay? So this is just the foundational stuff. Go ahead.
You said that God
didn't create love. It's already there.
That's correct. God, because God is love. God's
Can I say I love you?
yes, you can. Why? Because God gave you the revelation of what love
I'm
is.
using that relation to love you.
Right. What does the scripture say? We love because He first loved us.
But does scripture ever really talk about
Yes,
logic?
yes.
Yes, of course it does. Come, let us reason together, says the Lord.
But nobody says let's go sit down and do math problems.
Well, I think reason and logic are kind of the same thing, just kind of different aspects of it.
But see,
Thank
then
you
that's
for
a
that.
modern. I'm sorry, I'm gonna stop.
No, that's all right.
But like with modern society, how we think of math not specifically as logic, we think of math as like numbers.
Well, but I think logic will break down into the numbers. I mean, there's this thing called formal logic. We have A, if A, then B. We had A, therefore B. Well, that's just using letters and not numbers, right?
Yeah.
So it's just logic could be broken down into numbers if you really take the time to do it,
Okay, sorry.
right?
No, please. We love you.
Right? All right. So remember, we're just like the foundational stuff. I'm trying to form in you a worldview. So when we get to the hard stuff, you already have this stuff ready to go. You're like, oh, okay, I see that. Remember how I said things will start clicking in your mind as you go through? All right. I'm getting a little ahead of myself, but hopefully you start seeing how these things are fitting together. All right. And so also in the mind of God, outside of time, we have the origin of God's plan to decree for creation. So before God created, God knew what was going to happen in time because He determined it. Right? Now hold on for a second. Think about it. Before an architect starts building a building, what's the first thing he does before an architect starts building a building? What's he do?
He goes and see the
Okay. He sees where he's going to go, but what else does he do even before that?
You think what he's gonna do.
He thinks, he writes blueprints down, right? He plans, okay, I'm going to put a window here, I'm going to put a door here, I'm going to put the ceiling here. And then after he makes all the plans, what does he do? Then he goes out and builds according to the plans. Well, why would God be any different? So before God creates the world, God plans how He's going to create the world and what's going to happen in time. Because remember, He's the creator of time, right? So this origin of God's plans of creation, and the decree of creation, must be before He got created. Right? Does that make sense? Okay. So it is from beginning to everlasting. And we're going to show you another aspect of the chart. So if you see in your chart there at the bottom of your paper, at the bottom of that square, you see a little dark box. And now we're going to look at the dark box. Right? It's right there. Okay? So this is all outside of time. Okay? Now let's look at the aspect in time. So, because time, I want you to view time as a bubble, or a creation as a bubble inside the eternal. Okay? So look, so this is a bubble. Inside the eternal. And inside this bubble, we have all these things that God created, right? We have the time, we have principalities, angels, universe, earth, stars, animals, mankind, Satan, heaven, hell. All these things God created. These things are not eternal. God created these things. So, if you look inside here, as you look inside the bubble, it starts at the very beginning here, the beginning. We all know the story. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, right? And then it goes on, and inside the bubble here, it goes on to everlasting. But notice something very important here. Notice that this arrow does not leave the bubble. The arrow does not leave the bubble. Now, who can tell me in this room why the arrow does not leave the bubble? Well, let me ask you this question. Is there anything inside this bubble? Can anything inside this bubble ever leave this bubble? Well, okay. Let me ask you this question. Can God enter into creation? Yes. Can we ever enter outside of creation?
Outside creation, no.
Why? Why?
Why?
Because it's timeless. If we were to take, let's say we're here, and we were to go outside this bubble, guess what? We would be infinite. We would have a beginning and end, but that's impossible because we do have a beginning. Right? So even everlasting, even all of eternity is inside the bubble of the eternals. So we will never be able to leave. God can enter in, but we can never enter out. And so, in fact, this little line that we see right here is actually an infinite line. Because there's an infinite gap between the eternals and us. See? Anything outside the bubble has no beginning or end. But everything inside here has a beginning. So we can never enter outside the bubble. You see how it works? Am I losing anybody?
Well, I'm just thinking about the scriptures that says that when we live with him forever.
Forever. Where's forever going to be? It's forever out here or in here?
It's inside.
Inside. So even forever, even if you take this thing to infinite, God is beyond the infinite. That's how big our God is. He's beyond the infinite. He's the very definition of what infinite is. So that's why, for transition to everlasting, no matter how far we go, we'll never enter outside this bubble. Now, what does this have to do with apologetics? I'm going to show you a short 5-minute video of somebody using this very concept in a debate situation. But let me ask you this. When God created this bubble, which is time and creation itself, did God simply take this bubble and start here and go, okay, I'm going to create this, 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 I'm going to create this? Is that how God created it? Or did God do this? When God created creation, did he do this? Boop. Is that how God created it, or he created it slowly? Yes or no? What do you think? So I'm going somewhere with this.
It took 7 days, or 6 days.
But 6 days are in time, right? Look, so my question, let me make my question clear. When God was creating creation, did he do it slowly? Did he slowly create time, or did he create all time at once?
But slowly would have been
All the time at once.
Why? Why do you say that?
Because he's God. He's created.
Oh, okay. So therefore, because if God created slowly time at once, then that would mean that there's time outside the bubble, which we know there's not. See the problem? So God would have to create the past, present, and future all at the same time. So how does God know what's going to happen in the future? Because God created it. How does God know the future? Because God created it. So the future has already been created. We just haven't lived it out yet. The past is already happening at the same time the future is, from God's perspective. Does everyone see how that works? God creates past, present, and future simultaneously. So how does God know the future? Because God created the future. Right? Yes? No?
Yes.
See that? Okay.
Emoji.
All right, now, you're going to say, okay, Eric, this is fun to think about, but how does this help me in apologetics? Well, is everyone familiar with the Jehovah's Witnesses? Anyone heard of Jehovah's Witnesses? Okay. The Jehovah's Witnesses believe that Yeshua is not God, that he was the first created angel. Okay? Now, using this chart, let me see if you help me using an apologetic situation, this chart. You talk to Jehovah's Witness, and a Jehovah's Witness said to you, see, what you don't understand, Christian, which is you, I'm the Jehovah's Witness talking to you, that God created Jesus first, and then from when God created Jesus, then he created all of time and space through Jesus. That's what they would say.
Do they say?
Now, hold on. Yes, that's what they would say. Now, hold on. Think with me a second. I'm going to repeat it again and look at the chart and see if you can see the problem with it. Right? They say that God created Jesus first, and then through Jesus, he created time and space and matter. Now, what's the problem with that? Looking at the chart, what's the problem with that? So according to them,
It's universe. It's infinite. It's eternal.
right, yeah, you're right. So according to them, where is Yeshua created according to them? Is he created in the bubble or outside the bubble?
Inside the bubble.
But if, according to them, where is Yeshua created? Oh, well, if Yeshua is created outside the bubble, what's the problem with that? There's no beginning or end outside the bubble. So God would have to first create the bubble first, and then create Yeshua because it's time. So then Yeshua didn't create time and space and matter. So that's a problem. You see? So if Yeshua is the first creation, God must create a space for him to be created in, and so therefore he's not the creator of all things. See, that's the flaw in the Jehovah's Witnesses' idea of who Jesus is. Okay? So that's just an idea of how to understand this chart. Okay? Now, when I email you, when I send you the email, I'm going to have a picture of this chart here as well, so you can always break reference to it. You also write it down in your papers.
What about the else?
All right, yeah, but I'm not making reference to that. What I'm making reference to is inside the bubble here, even if something ceases to exist, if you live on forever for all of eternity, that eternity is still inside the bubble. Right? So you'll never ever get out of that bubble, even all eternity is inside the bubble. Okay? So this idea of we have to understand where God is and how he relates to himself in creation. And remember, there's an infinite line. This little black line that makes the bubble is an infinite line because we'll never be able to cross it. Only God can cross it. So God can be inside of time and outside of time at the same time.
Because he created.
If that could.
Alright, so let's look at a short video of an atheist during a debate asking a Christian, where did God come from?
1,000 years ago in 6 days by God. I am confused. Being philosophically consistent and being a very honest person, I'm sure you can tell me where God came from. And in addition, once you've told me where God comes from, please try to clarify how you can figure that a spiritual force can have an impact on a material universe to create it. I think that some years ago we already talked about that kind of thing in philosophical circles at any rate, by posing the question, if angels are made of spiritual matter and a pen is made of material matter and spiritual matter displaces no space, how many angels can dance on the tip of a pen? I have a sense of sort of reversal experience here, but please do, go ahead.
You got 5 minutes. Now, I just want to know which question.
That's all right. You may take the rest of the minutes.
We're supposed to do one question at a time. Which one would you like? That was part of the format for the debate. So which question?
I want you to fill in the story of the rest of the beginning of the universe. God, spiritual matter, impact on material matter.
Okay. So 2 questions. All right.
Go ahead.
All right, your question, where did God come from, assumes that you're thinking of the wrong, obviously it displays that you're thinking of the wrong God, because the God of the Bible is not affected by time, space, or matter. If he's affected by time, space, or matter, he's not God. Time, space, and matter is what we call a continuum. All of them have to come into existence at the same instant, because if there were matter but no space, where would you put it? If there were matter and space but no time, when would you put it? You cannot have time, space, or matter independently. They have to come into existence simultaneously. The Bible answers that in 10 words. In the beginning, there's time. God created the heaven, there's space, and the earth, there's matter. So you have time, space, matter, created a trinity of trinities there. Just, time is past, present, future. Space has length, width, height. Matter has solid, liquid, gas. You have a trinity of trinities created instantaneously. And the God who created them has to be outside of them. If he's limited by time, he's not God. The guy who created this computer is not in the computer. He's not running around in there changing the numbers on the screen, okay? The God who created this universe is outside of the universe. He's above it, beyond it, in it, through it. He's unaffected by it. So the concept that a spiritual force cannot have any effect on a material body, well then I guess you'd have to explain to me things like emotions and love and hatred and envy and jealousy and rationality. I mean, if your brain is just a random collection of chemicals that form by chance over billions of years, how on earth can you trust your own reasoning processes and the thoughts that you think? Okay, so your question, where did God come from, is assuming a limited God. And that's your problem. The God that I worship is not limited by time, space, or matter. If I could fit the infinite God in my 3-pound brain, he would not be worth worshiping, that's for certain. So that's the God that I worship. Thank you.
Mic drop. Yeah. Right? You see how when you know who God is, and how he functions, and how the scripture reveals him, it's very easy in an apologetic situation to answer some of these questions. You see that? So yes, God is outside of time. God is outside of space and matter. So therefore, he is not subject to it. So therefore, where God comes from is a wrong question to ask. Because God doesn't come from anywhere. He's infinite without beginning and end.
Which is why they have a problem. Because they want to put him in a box.
They want to put him in a box. So this, remember we talked about the limitations of knowing God? And so we can't know exactly everything there is to know about God. But what he's revealed to us, we can know. Okay? So we must stay within that realm of his revelation. Do not go beyond the realm of what God has revealed to us. Alright? So as we go through the classes, we need to be consistent about what we know so far. Because assuming that you agree with everything I've said today, when we get to some more deeper things and more tougher things, I have a belief, in a sense, that a lot of you are going to start changing your mind based on what we learned today. Because of some of the logical conclusions of what this knowledge of who God is might lead to. But I hope that you could want to be rather consistent with what you know rather than going based on what you learned. Okay? So, that ends as our time now. I wanted to go to the third half, but next week we're going to run through if God is love, what does that mean? And does God change his mind? Well, that's what we're going to talk about next week, and then start on a new subject after that.
Everybody healthy.
All right. I know there's a lot to take in sometimes. It's a little different way of looking at things. But hopefully as we go through, I get to mold your worldview a little bit according to what I believe the scriptures are teaching. And from there, we're going to do apologetics. All right?
Eric,
Yes.
can I say something based
Sure.
on me knowing you and your personality?
Yes.
Okay. So when he says, like, he's assuming that you agree with him, so I would really highly suggest that you go home and look over the charts and really, like, mill over it and really question everything to make sure you agree with that. Because you're going to come to a point where you're going to go, what? So it's better to go, what, now, and ask some questions at the beginning of class next week, if that makes sense.
Rather than coming into, oh, I didn't see that coming.
No,
Right.
Also, if we...
Let's come up here. Now, I was supposed to do this at the beginning of class, and I forgot to do it at the beginning of class. Come here. Now, I want you to come with me to stand right here, and I want you to help me find our class bird. Help me find our class bird for me. Help me find the class bird.
The beginning?
All right, tell me, is there a bird in there?
No.
Okay, help me find it. Help me find it. It's not a trick question. Help me find the class bird. Is there a bird in there?
Yes.
Okay, good job. You found the class bird. See, not that hard. Don't be scared. So she has found our class bird. Now every week, I'm going to ask you.
It took me 3.
So it took her 3 tries, but she found the class bird. Good job. Okay, thank you for volunteering. Appreciate it. Okay? So every week I'm going to ask you, please remind you.
He talks the same word like a word.
Very simple, very simple.
No, you know what? I
No.
was thinking of something like you want me to find
Right.
the bird, but thinking about something
Right.
about the class.
No. But why should I find the bird?
So-
Now, please remind me at the beginning of class to ask you to find the class bird. Now, there's a reason why I'm doing this, and you will find out in a few months of why I'm doing this, and the light bulb is going to go off. Okay? So, thank you for finding the class bird. Now, I'm just going to take a minute break here before we start with the next portion. What do you want his name to be? What do you want his name to be?
You're the one that knows.
What?
Sheet.
What? Bereshit? Okay. Bereshit is his name.
No, they can sing something.
Now we're gonna go to the parasha.
The Parsha. So we finished the apostolic portion. We take a 30-second break, and then we're going to move on.